Freya. Freya, also known as the Witch of the Woods and Frigg, is a supporting character in God of War, 2018. She is a Vanir goddess who helps Kratos and Atreus on their journey. She is the daughter of Njord, an ex-wife of Odin, the estranged mother of Baldur, the sister of Freyr, grandmother of Forseti, and the former queen of the Valkyries before Sigrun. Freya returns as the tetratagonist of God of War, Ragnarök, attempting to seek revenge against Kratos for killing Baldur, but later makes amends with him. Appearance. Due to her godhood, Freya's youthful appearance belies her true age. Despite her son Baldur's claims that it had been at least 100 years since the two were last together and the fact that she fought in the Aesir-Vanir War which lasted for centuries, Freya has the appearance of a beautiful woman in her late 30s. She has long back-length reddish chestnut hair tied in a near the end with some beaded and two long braided locks that fall to her shoulders. At the beginning of the game, she wears a light brown dress with animal skins and has faded tattoos on her arms. Towards the end of the journey, she is seen wearing a much more regal outfit, a dark brown leather dress with intricate runic patterns and gold inlaid into the lower part of dress. She also wears a bright orange shirt and her tattoos are no longer faded. She's also barefoot and very tall and curvilineous, considering that she can see Kratos eye to eye. According to Mimir, her fertile beauty was one of the reasons Odin agreed to marry Freya. Personality. Initially, Freya is very friendly, hospitable, and at times motherly towards Atreus, taking care of him when his illness had become worse and his father had set out to retrieve a cure. She was friendly towards Kratos, despite the latter's open distrust of virtually everyone and hatred for gods. It is implied that Freya sees herself in Kratos and that this is why she decided to help him, although she also teases, "Or maybe I just like you." It is unknown which of these answers is true, but she is shown to care for Atreus, both as a friend and as a mother figure of sorts. She occasionally scolds Kratos for keeping his past a secret from Atreus, and for distrusting divine beings despite being one herself. However, she understands his distrust due to the past actions of divine beings like the Aesir. She possibly reminded Kratos of Athena, which was why he was reluctant to trust her at first and not open with her as well. Freya agreed to marry Odin, her most hated enemy, in order to protect her people and end the war. However, the eventual pains that she would later face would yield negative results on her mentality. After the deaths of many of her people, the disappearance of her brother, the loss of her Valkyries, and the resentment she received from her own people, as well as losing her combative powers and being banished to Midgard for the rest of her life, Freya did whatever she could to protect the only person she had left in her life, her son Baldur. Due to the trauma of her previous losses, Freya became extremely paranoid and overprotective of him. Prophecies foretelling her son's demise drove her to cast a spell on Baldur, rendering him invulnerable to everything except mistletoe, which breaks the spell, but also meant he could never physically feel anything for as long as the spell lasted. For this reason, Freya panicked when she saw Atreus carrying mistletoe arrows, immediately destroying them and angrily telling Atreus to never go near them again. Freya also secretly bewitched Mimir, who had previously discovered Baldur's weakness, from speaking of it and her connection to Baldur to Kratos and Atreus. Although Freya hated herself for the pain her curse put on her son and acknowledged that she did it simply so to alleviate her own fear, the possibility of losing the only person she had left was too much for her to bear, and she still selfishly refused to lift the spell, even lying that the spell could not be broken by any means and earnestly tried to destroy all said means to break it. Freya was willing to do anything to protect her son, putting her life on the line to prevent Kratos from hurting him. After Baldur was freed from the curse, and told her that he would never forgive her, Freya offered to let her son kill her to make up for the pain she made him go through. She was perfectly willing to sacrifice herself if it meant Baldur would live, something that Kratos himself understood as a parent. However, despite understanding Freya's selfless action, Kratos couldn't stand by and let the cycle of gods killing their parents and kin continue, and so is forced to kill Baldur to stop him from killing his mother, causing Freya to become distraught and earning her hatred despite knowing how shameless and murderous her son had become. Believing it was a simple cold-blooded execution, she swore vengeance against Kratos for killing Baldur, as despite the fact that she saved his son's life and was the reason they would be able to reach Jotunheim, he took away the only person she had left in her life. At the start of God of War Ragnarök, Freya has become completely consumed with her quest for revenge against Kratos, ignoring his and Atreus' insistence that they mean her no harm, and relentlessly stalking them whenever they leave their protection stave. Her frustration is compounded by Kratos' choice to evade her rather than fight her directly. Even when offered the chance to stop Odin by Atreus, she refuses as it would mean forcing her to ally with Kratos. When Kratos and Atreus lose the protection stave, Freya goes so far as to wear her Valkyrie armor to hide her identity, goading the two into an actual battle until Kratos recognizes her weapon. However, despite how much she bitterly hated Kratos and raged over Baldur's death, Freya's heart is not entirely gone. As Atreus states, she could have very easily struck him down in front of Kratos, yet never followed through it despite the fact it would have gotten her a measure of vengeance over his son's death, showing how deep down she did retain a degree of affection towards Atreus. Indeed, even when she threatens Atreus with death and Kratos was not there, she ends up sparing him. Ultimately, when Kratos tries to calm Atreus down from mauling Freya in his bare form, Freya suddenly finds herself conflicted, reminded of her own behavior as a parent from watching how Kratos cares for his son. After reluctantly allying with Kratos to find and remove Odin's binding spell over her, Freya loses much of her drive for revenge as she is reminded of Odin's treatment of her and her people, and learns of Kratos' own quest for vengeance. Eventually, after they defeat Nidhogg and free her from the binding magic, Freya admits that while she is not prepared to forgive Kratos, she accepts that killing him is futile and that her hatred is reserved for Odin. By the end of Ragnarok, Freya ultimately accepts that vengeance truly would only leave one empty, refraining from killing Odin when Atreus has his soul inside an orb. With that, Freya regains her friendly and hospitable attitude, although the death of Baldur and impending war with Asgard and Odin certainly hardened her, and she has gained a sarcastic sense of humor. Norse mythology. In Germanic mythology, Frigg, Old Norse, Freya, Old High German, Freya, Old Norse, Free, Langobardic, and Frigg, Old English, is a goddess. In nearly all sources, she is described as the wife of the god Odin. In Old High German and Old Norse sources, she is also connected with the goddess Fulla. The English weekday name Friday, etymologically Old English, Frigg's Day, bears her name. Frigg is described as a goddess associated with foreknowledge and wisdom in Norse mythology, the northernmost branch of Germanic mythology and most extensively attested. Frigg is the wife of the major god Odin and dwells in the wetland halls of Fensalar, is famous for her foreknowledge, is associated with the goddesses Fulla, Lofn, Hlin, and Gna, and is ambiguously associated with the earth, otherwise personified as an apparently separate entity Jr., Old Norse birth. The children of Frigg and Odin include the gleaming god Baldur. Due to significant thematic overlap, scholars have proposed a particular connection to the goddess Freya. After Christianization, mention of Frigg continued to occur in Scandinavian folklore. In modern times, Frigg has appeared in modern popular culture, has been the subject of art, and receives modern veneration in Germanic neopaganism. Freya's boar Hildisvini was once a man named Otter who has a close bond with her. Otter wanted to learn more about his family but he needed a disguise, so Freya turned him into a boar named Hildisvini. Together they went to meet with Hyndla the giant seer to find out about his past. Freya has a necklace called Brisingamen that the dwarves made for her. She came across the dwarves while traveling the realms and noticed their amazing craftsmanship. Freya had them make a beautiful necklace for her. The dwarves would only give her a necklace if she agreed to spend some time with them for a while. When Freya returned to Asgard, word about what Freya did reach Odin's ears, which angered the Allfather. The necklace Brisingamen was stolen while Freya was asleep when she woke and found it was gone. Freya approached Odin asking him about the necklace. The Allfather would only give Brisingamen back only if she started a war for him. Odin wanted to start a war with Kings Hogni and Hedin, and Freya reluctantly followed Odin's order. Her necklace was returned, but it came with a price that she didn't like. As the goddess of love, Freya has slept with and loved many men. She slept with the dwarves to get the necklace Brisingamen. Freya also fell in love with a god known as Audr. Audr had made the gods angry on several occasions until one day they had enough and turned him into a sea serpent. Despite his appearance, Freya still loved him, so Odin had them separated so they couldn't be together. Audr was killed when a ship saw the giant serpent. Freya was sad when she learned about his death. She begged for Odin and the other gods to let him into Valhalla. Even though he didn't die in battle, Odin decided to let him in and became a god. But soon Odin and the other deities learned that Audr still disliked the gods and had a problem with following orders, so he was cast out of the Hall of the Gods. This broke Freya's heart and made her dislike Odin even more. Freya looked for her love in Midgard, where he was banished, and elsewhere in the 9 realms, but could never find him. Prior to the events of God of War, Little is known about her childhood, aside from being the daughter of Njord, as well as the sister of Freyr. Freya had been a leader of the Vanir gods during the Aesir-Vanir War and eventually agreed to marry Odin in order to bring peace between the two sides. Freya clearly did not enjoy this, due to her own distaste for the Aesir, especially after they unjustly imprisoned, tortured, and nearly killed her brother Freyr. During that time, she became the queen of the Valkyries. Also sometime during her marriage to Odin, Odin began to learn the ways of Freya's magic and began using it for unjust purposes. When Hrimthur offered Odin to build Asgard new walls to replace the old ones, he requested to receive only a private audience with Freya should he complete the project within 2 years in return. When he won the wager, Hrimthur whispered something to her with Mimir suspecting that he had embedded some weakness into the walls and passed this knowledge on to Freya, before being betrayed and killed by Thor. While she and Odin were acknowledged by Mimir to be genuinely in love, Freya eventually chose to leave Odin due to his unjust ways. Because Freya broke the marriage off from Odin, she therefore incurred the Allfather's wrath and spite. Out of fear and feeling deeply betrayed, Odin cursed her to prevent her from ever leaving Midgard in order to stop her making amends to her own kind, as many of the Vanir saw her marriage to Odin as a betrayal, and the curse also made it impossible for her to harm any living creature, through either physical or magical means. Additionally, he stripped Freya of her Valkyrie wings and hid them in an unknown location. Some saw this as petty cruelty on Odin's part, for Freya was a warrior in spirit and the curse would force her to do nothing else but live in isolation. He also didn't want her getting credit for anything in Asgard, so any worthy deed she accomplished was attributed to Frigg, which was what he had called her out of affection. The only thing she cherished from her marriage with Odin was their son Baldur. Though she loved him dearly, a prophecy foretelling his death as an unnecessary one drove her to find a way to prevent it. With her fears controlling her, Freya placed a powerful spell on her son, granting him invulnerability. She hoped that the spell would spare her son from death and herself from the pain of loss. However, her spell left Baldur unable to physically feel anything at all, including taste and other pleasures. Full of fury and resentment, Baldur demanded his mother to remove the spell, but she claimed she was unable to and tried to assure him that what she had done was for the better. Baldur was not convinced or moved by her motherly love. He attempted to kill her but couldn't bring himself to do so and instead vowed that he would hate and never forgive her, much to her sorrow. To this day, she remains blind to her son's desire to physically feel again and that her own fears brought about the torment Baldur endures. In fact, she lied to her son that she didn't know how to break the spell when in fact it was mistletoe and thus viewed the plant as wicked and sought to destroy it. God of War, 2018. Freya is implied to have lived a life similar to Kratos, saying she sees a lot of herself in him and by helping him, she hopes to atone for her mistakes. Under the alias of the Witch in the Woods, Freya first meets Kratos and Atreus in an incident where a boar she was protecting was shot and injured by Atreus. Kratos and Atreus agree to help heal the boar and are taken back to her home. She takes an immediate liking to Atreus and becomes his friend. Kratos, however, is wary of Freya, especially after it is revealed that she is a goddess. When Atreus is outside gathering materials for the healing process, Freya reveals to Kratos that she knows he is a foreign god and warns him that the Aesir will not tolerate his presence in their realms. She continues to express her worries for Atreus and the fact that Kratos keeps him ignorant of his true nature, but Kratos sternly states that it is not her concern. After the boar is healed, Freya gives thanks to Kratos and Atreus by placing marks on them that will hide them from the Aesir gods. Before they leave, Atreus asks Freya if they will meet again, to which she smiles and kindly responds, as much or as little as you like. Freya catches up to Kratos and Atreus as they begin scaling the mountain, offering to help them overcome the roadblock in front of the two. She leads them to Tyr's temple, all the while explaining its purpose and how to overcome the obstacles. She shows Kratos how to use the Bifrost and has him set a passage to Alfheim. However, she is unable to follow as the curse Odin placed on her quickly drags her back to Midgard. Freya is once again encountered when Kratos brings her Mimir's severed head to resurrect, much to her shock. Before she resurrects Mimir, she notices that Atreus is equipped with mistletoe arrows. Knowing that mistletoe is the only thing that can break the invincibility spell placed on her son, she quickly replaces Atreus's arrows with her own and destroys the mistletoe ones in her fireplace. Upon Mimir's revival, it immediately becomes apparent to Kratos that Freya greatly dislikes Mimir, and Mimir accidentally reveals Freya's identity to Kratos and Atreus while apologizing, as he would not have asked to be brought to her had he known she was the witch. This deepens Kratos' distrust of Freya. When Kratos asks why she didn't inform him of her godhood, she quietly points out his hypocrisy. Kratos leaves in anger with Atreus in tow. However, Kratos is forced to seek Freya's help and Atreus falls ill after a battle with Magni Modi. Freya is initially reluctant to help Kratos due to his open hatred of gods and only agrees to help when she realizes Atreus' plight. She scolds Kratos for keeping Atreus unaware of his divine heritage, as Atreus' current situation was a result of the conflict between Atreus' divine nature and his belief that he is a simple mortal. She tells Kratos that she needs a rare ingredient from Helheim to cure Atreus and that Kratos would need a non-ice-based weapon in order to fight the beasts living in that realm. When Kratos attempts to apologize for his previous reaction to the truth, she says that he is right to distrust the words of gods, and it's something she definitely needs no explanation for, a hint to her past experiences. After retrieving the ingredient, Kratos brings it to Freya who uses it to create a cure for Atreus. She then tells Kratos that she too has a son whom the runes, on the day of his birth, foretold of his needless death and she swore to do anything to protect him, no matter the sacrifice. She laments her decisions that had led to her son's resentment of her and implores Kratos to avoid making the same mistake and to have faith in his son. At this point, Freya begins to warm up to Kratos, while the ghost of Sparta hesitantly lets his guard down around her. After Kratos and Atreus end up in the realm of Helheim after another encounter with Baldur, Kratos and Atreus watch as an illusion plays in front of Baldur. They learn that Freya is Baldur's mother, whom he despises due to the spell she cast on him that took away his ability to physically feel anything. This also reveals that at some unknown point, Freya cursed Mimir to keep him from revealing Baldur's invincibility weakness. Just before the final encounter with Baldur, Freya appears before a cautious Kratos and Atreus to look for Baldur, claiming that the fields and woods speak his name, leading her to believe that he is in Midgard. She notices that Kratos and Atreus are more distant towards her, but before she could figure out the reason, Baldur appears. Freya is happy to see Baldur and tries to reach out to him and atone for his suffering only to be met with scorn. Baldur attempts to kill Freya but Kratos intervenes and it soon escalates into a fight. When Atreus stood before Kratos to protect him, Baldur punches him square in the chest, inadvertently causing the mistletoe arrow that was tied to Atreus' quiver strap to slice right through his fist which, much to Freya's shock and horror, breaks the invulnerability spell on him. With Baldur vulnerable, a desperate Freya uses her magic to reanimate the corpse of the frost giant Thamur to try to separate Kratos and Atreus from Baldur, pleading for them to stay out of her affairs. When Kratos retorts that Baldur cannot be reasoned with and means to kill her, she proclaims that she doesn't care and that she will protect him at all costs. Baldur soon reappears and the battle continues. Throughout the brawl, Freya begs them to stop fighting, believing that she can still reason with Baldur. After the battle dies down, she begs Kratos not to hurt Baldur, to which Kratos agrees. Baldur continues to berate Freya, condemning her for always interfering in his life. Freya admits she was wrong and tries to help Baldur find it in himself to give up his resentment of her, hoping to repair their relationship, but Baldur refuses to forgive her. Freya finally gives up trying to reason with Baldur and decides to let him kill her since it is the one thing that would bring him peace. As Baldur strangles her, she tells him she loves him. However, before Baldur could kill her, Kratos grabs him from behind and quotes his father by telling Baldur, "The cycle ends here," before snapping Baldur's neck, finally killing him. Freya, distraught from her son's needless death, swears vengeance upon Kratos saying he robbed her of everything. Claiming that Kratos is simply an animal filled with cruelty and rage who cannot change, she taunts him about his past that he has yet to reveal to his son. This prompts Kratos to finally divulge some of his violent past to Atreus, including his own act of patricide. She then picks up her son's body and shares a silent look with both gods before walking away. Kratos and Atreus then leave the area to finish their journey. According to Mimir, Baldur was the only gift she treasured from her marriage to Odin and she was a good parent who only wished to spare him pain, but her impulsive decision to curse him to accomplish it was bloody tragic and terribly stupid. After Kratos and Atreus return from Jotunheim, Mimir tells them that more time passed than they thought and in that time, Freya came to visit Mimir within Tyr's temple and asked where Odin kept her Valkyrie wings, which were related to the curse her husband had cast upon her. Mimir told her what little he knew of it, remarking sadly to the pair that the cycle of vengeance is not so easily broken. God of War Ragnarök. 3 years after Kratos killed Baldur, Freya's quest for vengeance continues with little sign of letting up. Kratos and Atreus set up a protection stave so she does not attack them at home, but they inevitably have to venture outside it to hunt for supplies. Freya frequently ambushes them during these trips, ignoring their repeated entreaties to leave them be and that they do not wish her any more harm. To her frustration, Kratos and Atreus always choose to avoid her rather than engage in a direct confrontation. After Atreus tracks down Tyr, he decides to meet Freya at the Council of Valkyries to convince her to join them in stopping Odin. Freya is none too pleased to see him, first threatening him and then taking away his mistletoe necklace, made from the arrowhead that rendered Baldur powerless. Atreus tells her of Odin's visit, and his own identity of the giant Loki. Even upon learning Tyr is alive, Freya refuses to cooperate in any plan that would force her to ally with Kratos, and makes Atreus leave. After reacquiring her Valkyrie wings, Freya ambushes Kratos and Atreus at their home as Vanadis, her Valkyrie alter ego. Unaware of her identity, Kratos and Atreus attack her with more determination, until Kratos recognizes her weapon and realizes who he is fighting. Using Kratos' distraction, Freya manages to gain the upper hand, but before she can exact her revenge, Atreus becomes consumed with rage and transforms into a bear. Kratos knocks Freya out of Atreus' path and calms him down until he transforms back into his human body. Freya, stunned by Kratos referring to her as their friend and seeing the care he shows to his own son, suddenly finds herself conflicted over her quest. Foregoing a chance to kill Kratos once and for all, Freya concedes that, for the moment, Kratos may be of more use to her alive than dead. Seeking to set herself free from Odin's binding magic, Freya, in disguise as a hawk, travels to her home realm of Vanaheim with Kratos and Atreus. There, with Kratos alone, she pushes away his attempts to help her with the pain of losing Baldur and of her fractured relationship with her brother Freyr. Kratos then reveals his past struggles in life to Freya, the kidnapping of his brother Deimos by Ares and Athena, the unintentional slaying of his first wife and daughter Lysandra and Calliope respectively due to Ares' manipulation, the destruction of Olympus. This causes Freya to reconsider her option of killing Kratos as she learns that it will not bring her peace, especially as she sees what Odin had done to her home village that is now abandoned and forgotten. Eventually, the pair find the source of Odin's binding magic comprised of world tree roots and are immediately attacked by Nidhogg when she attempts to break through the roots. During the fight, Kratos keeps the Guardian occupied and Freya flies in to rip up the root, keeping her from staying in Vanaheim, and she turns back to her human form to aid in the fight. Nidhogg is eventually slain and Freya breaks each world tree root to regain her warrior spirit and in the end, decides to spare and forgive Kratos as she realizes that despite Baldur's death, it is Odin who needs to die and must pay for what he has done to her. After reconciling with Freyr, Freya joins Kratos in returning to Sindri and Brock's house, where she joins Kratos, Mimir, and Tyr in scolding Atreus for thinking of cooperating with Odin. After Atreus runs away to Asgard, Freya and Kratos decide to seek out the Nornir, the fates of Midgard, to discern how to retrieve Atreus. To face the Nornir, they have to go through trials filled with hallucinations of their past, with Freya having to go through the horrifying ordeal of being confronted by Baldur all over again. Finally reaching the Nornir, they are given the confusing revelation that there is no true prophecy, and that whatever the Nornir predict is not set in stone. They taunt that Baldur suffered a senseless death because of how Freya raised him, rather than because of fate. Upon learning that Heimdall is fated to kill Atreus, Kratos ignores their warnings and departs with Freya. After reuniting with Atreus, who caused havoc in Helheim by releasing a giant Garm, they learn about the mask he recovered, which Odin is trying to get his hands on. Learning Freyr was captured by the Aesir, Freya joins Kratos and Atreus in rescuing him, though it comes at the cost of Freyr's friend Berger, who sacrifices himself to stop an attack by dragons. Freya takes an injured Freyr to be healed in the aftermath. After Kratos is forced to kill Heimdall, making Ragnarok inevitable, Freya and the rest of the group agree that their best option is for Atreus to head to Asgard to finish reassembling the mask. Atreus does so, and upon returning to the refuge gives the mask to Tyr, who claims to know a secret path to Asgard. Just as they are preparing to leave, however, Brock calls Tyr's claims into question and confronts him over it. To everyone's shock, Tyr fatally stabs Brock in anger and reveals himself to really be Odin in disguise, grabbing Atreus as a hostage. Freya tries to angrily confront her former husband, but is forced to break off from the confrontation to try to heal Brock, and Odin manages to escape with the mask. Despite Freya's best efforts, Brock dies in Sindri's arms, leaving the entire group crestfallen at how they were deceived by Odin. Galvanized by Brock's death, the group reaffirms that they will fight Odin themselves. During their confrontation with Odin, Freya uses her Valkyrie powers to force him to kneel before her, getting revenge for his role in her son's fate and his abuse of her during their marriage. After Atreus destroys the mask and transfers Odin's soul into a stone, he hands it off to Kratos, who in turn offers Freya the chance to destroy it and get her revenge. Freya, having learned from her experiences with Kratos that revenge will not be the cure for her suffering, refuses, only for a vengeful Sindri to destroy it himself. Surtur soon begins destroying Asgard, and despite Freya's protests, Freyr sacrifices himself to allow her and the others to escape. In the aftermath, Atreus finds Freya in Midgard, who thanks him for his actions and accepts him as part of her family, giving him back his necklace as a sign of his warrior spirit. After Kratos and Atreus separate, she and Mimir agree to help him in rebuilding the Nine Realms in the aftermath of Ragnarok. From then on, Freya becomes Kratos' traveling companion in much the same way as Atreus. They investigate a prison in Vanaheim where they are shocked to find the real Tyr, still alive and oblivious to Odin's deception. They also find Birgir alive and help him get back home. They return to Sanctuary Grove, where Freya uneasily apologizes to Chorley, having neglected him in her quest for revenge. Birgir offers to take care of Chorley in her stead while she helps Kratos. Freya is present for Brock's funeral, helping Sindri by using one of her arrows to set his pyre aflame. Learning that Gna, Odin's replacement for her as Valkyrie Queen, has survived the battle in Asgard, she and Kratos set out to hunt the dangerous enemy. Finding Gna in Muspelheim, the two battle and eventually subdue her. Freya tries to convince Gna to let go of her vengeance, but the Valkyrie angrily tells her to finish it. With no other options, Freya solemnly beheads Gna. Powers and abilities. Powers. As the leader of the Vanir, Freya is an extremely powerful god, the most powerful of the Vanir gods. Her power was great enough that even the Valkyries revered her for it, being acknowledged by even the immensely formidable Sigrun as the true queen of the Valkyries. Seer Mastery. Freya is the most powerful and knowledgeable user of the seer witchcraft practiced by the Vanir gods. As the leader of the Vanir, Freya is undoubtedly among the most powerful gods of the Nine Realms. Even Kratos was impressed by her magical capabilities, enough so that he called her competent in her craft, even before Mimir revealed her identity as a Vanir goddess. Her magic was even considered by Atreus to be much stronger than Odin's very own. Mimir confirmed this and stated that Odin only managed to curse Freya by taking advantage of her weaknesses. Likewise, Freya's spell of protection was so powerful and complex that not even Odin could lift it, nor could he cast it on himself, and when she crafted a binding spell, Odin was unable to overcome her magic directly, having to collapse the ground to disrupt her concentration to break free. While she cannot engage in active battle using her magic due to Odin's curses, Freya's magical capabilities nevertheless made her highly useful in helping others, and she is shown to be able to manipulate others to fight for her. As an example to her power when used at its fullest, she was known to be among the most powerful warriors of the Vanir back when she was still able to use magic in battle, and even managed to forcibly stop Thor from massacring the giants in Jotunheim and send themselves back to Asgard using her magic, a feat that Mimir once said required the Jotun kings to cast spells together. In addition, her magic proved powerful enough to block out the strength of the Leviathan axe, which is equal to Mjolnir in power as two of the strongest weapons in the Nine Realms, preventing Kratos and Atreus from entering her home no matter what, leaving Atreus in awe at just how powerful her magic was despite being affected by Odin's curse. Spell casting. As the greatest master of the magics of the Vanir, Freya is fully capable of casting a wide variety of seer spells without any concentration, requiring simply mere hand gestures, and verbal spells in the ancient Vanir language. Cloaking spell. She can mark someone with a rune to mask their location from their pursuers, even one as competent as Baldur. Mimir also revealed during one of his tales that Freya concealed Thor with her magic so he can infiltrate Jotunheim with her. Magical perceptions. Freya upon the initial encounter with Kratos and his son could sense their divine origin. She could even see that Kratos was a god of a foreign realm. She could also hear the forest state her son Baldur was in Midgard. Chlorokinesis. She can manipulate the flora around her for various effect, such as bending vines to her will, conjuring vines to subdue her opponents, strong enough to constrict even the likes of Kratos, Baldur, and Odin, and creating weapon, such as a bow, out of plants. Purification. She can contain and purify seer poisons generated from scorn poles for indefinite amount of time, as long as her medium is still attached to the scorn poles. Animal command. Freya can command creatures, such as the gigantic turtle that lives on her home, to move according to her wishes. Legion summon. Through her magic, Freya can call forth humanoid creatures made of plant matters. They aren't strong on their own, instead overwhelming the opponent with sheer numbers. Divination. Freya, through the use of runes, can divine the future. Using this, she was able to predict that Baldur would die a needless death. Necromancy. Freya possessed the knowledge and the skill needed to reanimate dead bodies into something closely resembling their former self. They even have the capability to use their skills from when they were alive. There are limits to this magic, however, as Mimir himself said that he was still a decomposing head and his existence was unpleasant enough that Freya wouldn't want to resurrect Baldur using this magic. It also seemed to be dependent on the condition of the corpse, as Freya commented the state of Mimir's head before casting the magic. She can also reanimate someone without recovering their consciousness, essentially making them her puppet. Invulnerability spell, her most famous feat of spellcasting, one that made Baldur invulnerable to all threats except for mistletoe, the only item which could break the spell, due to the Vanir magic's fickleness. The invulnerability also gave unintended side effect which made the target unable to feel anything, from pain to pleasure, which made Baldur consider this spell to be a curse instead of a blessing. Aside from mistletoe, there is still a possibility for one to incapacitate or injure the target, as demonstrated during the fight between Kratos and Baldur, although any wound will be rapidly healed. Healing spells. Freya is a greatly capable and knowledgeable healer, knowing several spells and ingredients needed for different types of sickness or wound. She even knew how to treat illness from something Mimir claimed to be unheard of, such as one stemming from a god believing himself to be mortal. Many of her healing arts was used in conjunction with herbs and seer spells. Tying spell. With an object of the victim, Freya can cast a binding spell which will strangle the person she chooses. The tighter the object, the stronger the hanging of the victim will be. Shape-shifting. Freya was able to shape-shift as she could transform herself into an eagle, searching before a cautious Kratos and Atreus to look for Baldur. Telekinesis. Freya once lifted and kept Atreus' bow in the air for her to place her bowstring, which can contain and channel the light of Alfheim, onto it. Toxokinesis. Freya can use poison as a weapon, launching poison as projectiles onto the ground. Realm travel. Freya knows the runes to access different realms, such as Alfheim and Helheim. Through unknown method, she managed to access the realm travel room and interrogate Mimir while Kratos and Atreus were in Jotunheim. Energy projection. Freya can project bolts of magical energy from her hands or in the form of arrows. Magical combat. While unable to kill or even harm someone due to Odin's curse, she is said to have been able to use seer spells to fight against others. This is a notable feat, as she was among the Vanir that used magic to fight against the Aesir to a standstill in the Aesir-Vanir War. Power infusion. Freya can infuse her weapons with magic, which gives her sword and arrow attacks more force and can allow her to release shockwaves when striking the ground with her sword. Valkyrie wings. With her Valkyrie wings, Freya can fly and maintain combat in the air. Immortality. As a Vanir god, Freya is unaging, as despite being millennia old, she still retains the appearance of a woman in her prime. However, she can be killed by other gods and powerful weapons or beings. Incarnation of beauty. Being the goddess of beauty, Freya radiates a dazzling natural beauty. Mimir admitted that she was as well known for her beauty as for her prowess in battle. Odin was so taken with Freya's beauty that was one of the reasons why he agreed to marry her. Amakinesis. Being the goddess of love, like Aphrodite, Freya also has power over love and the feelings linked to it. Superhuman durability. As the former leader of the Valkyries and among the most powerful of the Vanir gods who had fought the Aesir dozens of times, Freya must have considerable levels of superhuman durability to be able to survive fighting the Aesir, who were renowned for their extreme raw strength. Despite having spent centuries unable to fight anyone due to Odin's curse, Freya's durability did not seem to have dwindled from the lack of combat, as she not only withstood a high fall without any damage, but even Baldur attempting to kill her by gripping her neck without restraint for a decent amount of time, either about to snap it or choke her to death, caused her only minor discomfort, still able to declare her love for him, and she survived without any actual injury when Kratos freed her. While trying to kill Kratos, Freya was able to withstand being repeatedly forced aside and knocked down without any injuries, although Kratos wasn't trying to kill her at all. Superhuman strength. Freya has displayed tremendous levels of superhuman strength. Being capable of pressuring a holding back Kratos, she was able to strike with her sword hard enough to dent the Guardian shield, give Kratos noticeable effort in breaking free from her holds and easily lift and throw Kratos aside. Abilities. Master Combatant. As the former Queen of the Valkyries, Freya is an immensely formidable warrior, enough so that Odin opted to take her wings and cursed her to never be able to fight after she abandoned him. Indeed, she comes close to killing Kratos numerous times and even manages to temporarily overpower him in their final fight, although Kratos was holding himself back on all their altercations. She later teased Kratos that she would have beaten him in this fight had Atreus not turned into a bear. She did know her limits, claiming that while she was able to stalemate Odin's invading force at one point, she lacked the experience of leading an invasion, deferring to Kratos instead. Master hand-to-hand combatant, Freya has displayed a remarkable amount of skill in unarmed combat, managing to repeatedly knock down and restrain Kratos. Master swordswoman, Freya was extremely skilled in swordsmanship. Using her sword, she was capable of nearly overpowering and killing Kratos himself when he was distracted. Master archer, Freya was also an exceptional archer, using her bow effectively against multiple enemies, and even Kratos himself was struck repeatedly by Freya's arrows. She can shoot up to 3 arrows in near instantaneous speeds. Even with her curse, she still finds some use with her bow, creating light bridges by shooting arrows infused with the light of Alfheim. Gifted intellect, Freya is a highly intelligent goddess. In addition to mastering seer magic, she is also knowledgeable over many topics and creatures among the 9 realms. She also had the foresight to bewitch Mimir long ago, prevent him from remembering the weakness to Baldur's invulnerability. Freya, while not able to break the curses Odin put on her, was able to find loopholes within them. She was also able to identify Kratos as a god upon their first meeting.
If you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later, bye bye.